Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Warrior Rulebook podcast. I'm so excited today because I'm going to be talking to a financial expert, which doesn't really deal with what I deal with. So I wanted to add on another perspective. So, as you know, I love talking about things that have to do with self development as well as reaching your financial goals. So, the person that I'm interviewing today is named Deshawn Peterson, and he's from Detroit, Michigan. But he still considers himself to be a global citizen. And so he spent the last 7 years living abroad. That's a very long time, building a career in financial services. So we're going to be talking to him today as he loves working with people to help them reach their financial goals and especially those in his community. And outside of finance, he's into fitness and he loves coordinating outdoor events. So if you want to connect with him just early in advance, then you can connect with him on LinkedIn. So here now is Deshawn Peterson. Hello, Deshawn. How are
Hey,
you?
Monique, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got involved in finances?
Yeah, so it kind of it's like a how you could say a full circle moment. So during my university years, I was working in financial services in like a call center setting and never thought nothing of it. But 10 years later, I was reintroduced in a financial planning capacity and it just clicked. I would call it like the equilibrium moment. Whereas it was just at the right time, right age, right mind frame, and found myself in love with the capital markets, the human aspect of personal finance, financial behavior, and just really seeing the opportunity to actually make true impact on everyday people. Um, so I've been doing it ever since. Love everything I'm doing, and it's literally all I'm consuming as far as content and just things of that nature.
Okay, and so for someone that might consider finances to be a dry topic, even though I'm sure all of us can argue that we need more money, unless you're like Bill Gates or extremely rich. What are the benefits of investing while living abroad?
One, if you're a U.S. citizen, there aren't, just to be frank. Because of just certain regulations like FATCA, the IRS, and things like that. So you really don't have benefits as a citizen abroad, but there is opportunities to invest in yourself, like cheaper education, career aspects, opportunity to live in a less expensive country, city, what gives you more opportunity to have a higher saving index. So you can invest in home, your IRA, 401k, or just like your traditional brokerage account. So I would say that is the actual benefit. But as far as like tax savings and things like that, the options are very limited. The only one benefit I can think of off top would be the foreigner earn exclusion, which is basically saying like if you're a foreigner and you're making under $108,000 a year, as a U.S. citizen living in a foreign country, you don't have to claim or pay those federal taxes as long as you work with the proper professional, right, CPA or etc. But outside of that, I think the opportunity is not necessarily like tax bills or things like that, like investing in these secret loopholes. But I think it's in everything else from a holistic standpoint.
Okay, and so about building your investment portfolio, what are some things that people can start by doing? Because I know for some people, investing, even for me, it can be a little daunting. So, like, what are some good key things to have in your portfolio?
I wouldn't say even start there. I think what people need to do is just get the right mind frame. I'd say just read a book. A good book I think to start with is The Richest Man in Babylon, because it just breaks down the concept of your money is working for you and your money sitting in the bank account is doing nothing for you, but everything for the bank. Another good book I think is Broke Millennial because it's goal oriented. So it's not just these broad concepts, but it's like here's some resources, links, websites, and etc. So I think getting your mind frame right. And then I will honestly say if you have no experience, you want to meet a professional. You know, Most financial advisors, most strategists, accountants, CPAs, tax advisors, insurance brokers, etc. They will do the consultate. The initial consultation usually is free or within reason, right? So if you don't consider yourself to be a professional or have a high personal finance acumen, I would say do the free consultation. Go, free. Go the freemium route. Go get the hour, learn the education, see what's available, and shop and compare. But after that, most people would consider the basics, right? Make sure that your employer has like the 401k, see if there's any opportunity for matching, profit sharing. IRAs, are small amounts of money at first, but over time, a lot of those things will come with a menu or a predetermined menu of what you can and cannot select. So, based on your risk profile, things like that, a lot of these places or institutions do have menus or selections already in place for you. So, you don't have to necessarily be an analyst or a portfolio manager working at a hedge fund to feel like, oh, I don't know everything, so I can't do anything. It's more about just getting started with the basics, getting educated with your choices, and just making the best decision at that. Just because you start something today doesn't mean you can't pivot or make adjustments in the future, because that's truly what investing is starting today with the basics, and every quarter, every 6 months, once a year, adding, learning, evaluating, assessing, and then just moving forward.
Can you tell me a little bit more about assessing your
Mm,
finances? Because sometimes, people tend to set things and they forget it. And, for example, even with student loans, I know that there are a lot of people out there, they're grateful that Joe Biden keeps, extending the repayment, but it's definitely like a uncomfortable feeling to want to look at the numbers sometimes, especially if you're not at a place in your life where it's a bill you just pay. Like sometimes we're just in a space where we're like, oh, I need to get some more money. So it's like, how can someone assess their finances in power?
mm. One, you need to be mature enough to look at it. A lot of people, as you say, know these things are in the background, but refuse to log into those accounts, those credit card bills, those loans, their checking account frequently. I would say you just have to be aware. Just have a very thorough conversation with yourself, and I would say call each of those providers, or whether it's your bank, your loans, any of them. Just call them. Take the day. It might take an hour, 2 hours to actually get a full scope of things, but you are a client, you're a customer to these institutions, these banks, these companies. So you should be able to ask them for help, assistance, and education. And from there, I would just say you want to do quarterly reviews every 6 months, just review. But also, again, going back to the initial thing, get professional help so that they can quantify your goals, so that they can benchmark and say, okay, your savings goal is $300 a month. So that means, at the end of the year, you should have 3,600. So if you say after 6 months you only have 1,000, then there's your benchmark, right? There's a huge gap to assess and say, okay, I need to save more, I need to spend less. But you set a target, and that's the best way to look at it. So I would say if you're going to assess your goals, the first thing you need to do is quantify your goals, not just, oh, I want to save money, but actually attach a number to it so you can actually hold yourself accountable and can track the progress to see if you're ahead, behind, or right on schedule.
Yes, and sometimes with like not setting a target, it's excuse me. Sometimes with setting a target, it can be so like overwhelming at times, especially with unexpected situations coming up in life, and you find yourself having to readjust the target. And so, what I want to ask now is, with there being so many different financial problems happening in the world today, namely the food shortage that is happening and is continuing to really put people at a disadvantage, what can our communities and even at a national level do, or what would be ideal for us to do to be able to kind of come to an equilibrium where we're prepared and not scrambling?
Ask for help. I think there's a lot of humility in asking for help, but I think
Mhm.
people are prideful, especially from our community. No one wants to ask for help. Most people would YouTube it to death, get analysis paralysis, do nothing. and
Yes.
6 months later repeat the cycle, because us as a community, we're prideful people, welcoming people, but humility is not on. It's not high up on the scale. If you go to any city or etc., there are going to be plenty of building small, especially small businesses in your community that serve your community, that look like you, that are people like you, families, parents, who are there to serve you. Whether it's a State Farm, or Allstate, an insurance company, a UPS store. Small businesses serve those communities. So I think the number one thing is we have to ask for help, because it's it's an unrealistic expectation to think you have to achieve all of your goals alone.
Yes.
So I think that is I would say the biggest thing for equilibrium. The closest thing to get to equilibrium is asking for help, right? No business
Mm.
is built alone. Everyone's not an entrepreneur, because if everyone's an entrepreneur, there'll be no one to hire, and everyone would be, this huge group of individuals, and no one will be working in unison or have any synergy, as you mentioned.
Yes. And sometimes what I have found and what I have seen, once people do get the help, it's like sometimes people are hush hush about like their strategies of saving and stuff like that. So it's like, how can the family be more, like, I guess, willing to teach their children? It's like, what's the right age to teach them finances? And,
Day
yeah.
day one to 800, from day one, I would say it's never too soon to even start to introduce the concept of what money is,
Mm.
because I guess it comes back to that whole trickle down effect. If you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. So if you're having a family, siblings, or etc., if you don't know, they won't know. So it goes
Mm.
back to that asking for help, on the outside help. Can you please educate me? Because there's nothing wrong with having money, but it seems to be a huge taboo to discuss not having money. But it's like we're running in this huge circle. Like, I don't have any money. I need help. I don't want to ask for help because I don't want people to know I don't have money, but I don't have money, so I'm not going to ask for help. So it's just kind of this snake eating its own tail. So I think, yeah, for a kid's perspective, I think maybe ninth grade, 10th grade, especially when you start having those discussions about student loans, work study, getting your first job. I know for me, I got my first job like 15, 16.
Mm. Same.
That, that's 200, $250 every other week was everything. Of course, you blow it,
Yeah.
but even just education on like taxes, how to budget, how to open up your own bank account, just banking. Not even talking about investing, just getting banked. You know, what does it mean to have a credit card versus a debit card? So I think that would be the ideal age when you're actually understanding the exchange of earned salary, earned wages, and you're actually spending your own money.
So, what's something that's been a hot topic for you in your investment community in your area? Because I'm not an investor, so kind of shed some light on what's going on.
I think it's everything, right? It means everything. Everyone, entrepreneurship, trading, options, crypto, um, getting started. I think that's probably the most common question that isn't mentioned. I think there's a huge, I won't say paradigm, but there's a huge polarization. There's people who are super radical and like knee deep in the most risky types of business, and then there's other who are just starting but just don't know where to start or know who to ask. So I think right now the biggest thing is just like getting started, but just not knowing how to approach or who to approach. And for me and my community, our whole thing is just learning how to become more personable, but more approachable. So I think that comes to the content and stuff like that, and not just come as a YouTube guru, but just actually saying, I am a professional. I do this every day, right? So for me, I have 65 households and I'm managing over $20 million.
Mm.
But doesn't mean that I don't want to help the person who has $500 a month or $200 a month, because it's all the same advice essentially.
Yeah.
Spend less, save more. 401k, IRA, and those two things, the earlier you start, will actually alleviate so much pressure in the back end. Because if you have an IRA, a 401k, you got your 10 years working in the US, you got Social Security kicking in. So by the time you're 59 and a half to 60, you should already have three passive forms of income. In addition to there are other opportunities like real estate, buying your first home, and just getting educated on a ton of government programs that are actually out there.
Hmm.
So I think that's the biggest thing is just getting the information out there because I think that we feel that in order to be an investor, you need to be rich. I actually think it needs to just be a certain level of education and awareness. And education, not as in university or college, but just getting a book, reading it one or two, three, four books a year, getting the resources, going to like your community centers, going again those free consultations, going to those small business or networking events for like-minded people, and just changing your your content diet, right? Because if you're just going from I don't know what I'm doing to reading the most high level investment information, that can really be daunting, overwhelming. But if you're just changing your environment and just slowly introducing yourself over time, you will be financially free, or at least have that financial foundation where you won't feel so powerless um, as you may feel today. I think that's a good way to phrase it. I hope that
Yeah.
answers.
Yes, I love what you said about changing your environment because sometimes when you're in a situation, you have no idea how much it's stifling you. Like you try to come with ideas and you want to try new things. And sometimes when you're around people that just don't believe in it or they just have a really horrible outlook on life, that trickles down to you without you even realizing that. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And so, can you tell me a little bit more about how investors, how you personally are trying to be more personable with people so they feel that they can approach you for the help? Because sometimes I've also experienced where when you are interacting with people that are more successful than you. Like, for example, if you're on social media, they may leave you on red sometimes, and that could be because they're busy. But then next thing you know, they're like sending something out like, check out my video and stuff like this. So it's like, how can we as financial experts also be more personable to the point where we can allow and invite people to interact with us?
For me, I use Calendly religiously, personally. So
Mm-hmm.
as long as it's on my calendar, I'm willing to have a conversation with anyone because I'm just that tedious or that type of person. Content, of course. So people build trust from afar with content. And I think the group chats communities are good.
Yeah.
Discord, Facebook groups, GroupMe. I think the group chats are good because they start to build their own momentum to a point where as you no longer are the main facilitator, but people are so in love with the group and the community that they start to do it themselves. So I think those are the most things, but just being visible. And it doesn't have to be online. You can be offline, right? You can be, huge advocate in like your local community center, block party, fitness community, therapy community. Community can be anything, right? But just being available, being out there, because most of the times, the people who will approach you won't be direct; they'll be referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea you just have to be a top of mind all the time, because someone might not want to approach you now, but someone comes to you one week and says, "Hey, do you know any good financial advisors, or do you know someone who works in real estate?" Whoever is the most engaged or the person you see the most frequently is going to be the person you refer to. And based on their reputation, whether it's online, offline, is going to really be a huge component of how likely you are going to refer them or recommend them or recommend their content, their channel, their website, anything.
Awesome, awesome. So now I want to end with some rapid fire questions because
Mm,
this is a podcast about self care and self development. So I'm gonna ask a few questions in rapid fire, and you just let me know the first thing that comes up off your head. Okay.
mm.
Okay. So one, what is the most positive thought that you have ever thought in your head on a frequent basis?
What's the most positive thought I've ever had on a frequent basis? Maybe at the end of the day, I would say I had a good day because I did everything on my calendar. I feel accomplished. So I can sleep at ease because it's like, as you get older and all this other crap, you just have so much weight on your head when you sleep, so it kind of deters your sleep. but if I just scratch off my to-do list on my calendar, I'm happy with that. Honestly, that's the most positive thing I enjoy on a daily basis. Or going to the gym. After leaving the gym, it's just like a euphoria moment. Like I did that because that was for myself. So I'll say those
Mhm.
two things.
What's a book that you are looking forward to reading soon?
Right now, I am reading Terry Smith's book for people in the finance world. You know who this is. Terry Smith's book is it's called Investing for Growth. So good. It's a bit high level, but it's just about one of my favorite investors and how he runs his fund. And it's basically it walks you through chronological order of his thoughts from starting the company to today, and it just goes through a timeline of just like certain events or certain letters that he's written to the community and just dissects them. In addition to add some commentary. And another book I'm reading is Intelligent Investor, Benjamin Graham. And another book I'm reading right now is what's it? Habits of Titans, Tools of Titans, Tim Ferriss. So those are three books I'm going through right now.
Awesome. So, who's a person that you can talk to if you're ever stressed out or you just want to kick ideas off of?
My partner, as basically my partner Miriam, I talk to all the time, best friend. So yeah, I would say she's probably the person I just like. What do you think about this? Whether it's something serious or not, or probably just more off the hip.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. If you want to connect with Deshawn online, you can connect with him on LinkedIn, and I will drop the link in the description. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. I appreciate it.
Good one.